Hey guys, outofworkbum here. Today we're going to make some strawberry wine that I'm eventually going to turn into strawberry brandy, Moonshine. So basically, if you've seen my videos before, you know that I normally do a 5-gallon batch. I'll do 5 pounds of fruit, 5 pounds of sugar to 5 gallons of water. That's the basic recipe for any of my brandies. Whether it's the peach or the blueberry or apple or any of that stuff, it's always 1 to 1 to 1. So if you're going to do a 10-gallon batch, you do 10 pounds of fruit, 10 pounds of sugar, 10 gallons of water. So normally I do a 5-gallon batch, and we're going to start off with putting the strawberries. We're going to cut the leaves off them, rinse them under water, and get them cleaned up a little bit. Then we're going to put 3 gallons of water into our pan, which I turned the burner on already, I guess. And we're going to turn this up till it gets good and hot, and then we're going to dissolve our sugar into that. So I'll come back once that's ready to go. Alright, so while I'm waiting for that to heat up so I can put the sugar in, I wanted to show you guys some of the last batches that I made. This is after I've run it through the still. When you run it through the still, it comes through clear, even though this will be a pinkish color. So when you run it through the still, it comes out a clear liquor. It's considered a brandy. You can always add fruit back to it to re-flavor it, but it does have a slight a fruity flavor already. But it's really hot. It's real alcohol. So this is the peach that I made before, and this is the blueberry. So what I've been playing with is toasting some oak to change the color. So the color comes out like that, but as you add different types of wood, you can char it, and it changes the whole flavor of the whole liquor. So these are both the blueberry, but they were originally clear like the peach. So this one here and this one are the same, except the only difference is this one has toasted oak that is not charred, and this one has toasted oak that is charred. And you can look up online how to toast the oak. Depending on how you toast it, the temperature and the length of time that you toast it, you'll get different flavors out of the wood. So you can see the flavor in there. I don't know if you can see it through the colors or not. But that's the one piece of wood that's been in there for about a month, and you just restrain it out. But it's already changed the flavor and the color dramatically, and it's coming out to be a much better product. So I'm just playing with that. That's something I'm learning, and it's something that you can learn online. Once I figure it out, I can do some videos on it. But these are just different test bottles that I've had. So I'm going to add the sugar to this now. Again, this is about 5 pounds of sugar, just regular white sugar. This is 3 gallons of water that I put in. I did put a little sugar in the bowl so I can activate my yeast later. So basically I'm just going to add this in and stir it up until it's dissolved. You can look down in there, and it's not quite boiling, it's just good and hot. So we're just going to stir it up until basically it's a simple syrup. And this gives something extra besides just the fruit for the yeast to feed on. Alright, so you don't really want this hot, you just want it enough to dissolve the sugar. So once your sugar is dissolved, you're going to add your fruit. And you can try to do this without splashing it everywhere. And that's that. So I'm going to let this soften a little bit in the warm water. Again, that's about 4.5 or 5 pounds of fruit. I started with 6 pounds, but once you cut the leaves and the centers out of them, you end up with a little bit less. So it's about 4 3/4 pounds, almost 5 pounds. So I'm just going to let that soften up, and then I'm going to hit it with the little puree, and it'll be ready to have the yeast added to it at that point. Alright, I'll come back after that. It's ready to start the yeast to be activated. So now that this got, it's warm but not hot. So I'm going to take a little bit of that water and I'm going to just put it in my sugar. And I'm just going to add the yeast to this to make sure it's activated. Give it a little stir. Don't worry about the leaves and stuff. I rinsed off everything I could, but it's still going to be some little strawberry leaves and things in here. It's not going to make a difference at the end product. So this is new yeast. I've never tried it before. I usually use this regular bread yeast. This is Red Star Dady, D-A-D-Y. I got it on Amazon for, I think it was like $10 or $11 for a pound. It says to use 1 to 2 grams per gallon. I measured out my teaspoon, ends up being about 9 grams. So I'm going to go a little bit over a teaspoon. I'm going to add that to my sugary water and give that a few minutes to see if it activates. Make sure the yeast is going to be okay. And I'm going to kill the heat on this. And while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to start pureeing these strawberries up so I can fit them in my jar, in my, whatever they call that, the vessel that it's going to distill in, that's going to, let's see if I can do this without making a mess. Alright, I'll come back when this is all finished. Alright, so here's my strawberry slurry. This is the strawberries and the sugar and the 3 gallons of water. And thankfully, I remembered to follow my most important rule, which is make sure you do this when your wife is not home, because I tend to make a mess. So I've got some cleaning up to do, but I'm still waiting for the yeast to activate. You can hear my feet sticking to the floor here. Gross. She's not going to be happy. But I'm going to let the yeast activate for a little while and give that another 5-10 minutes and see if it works. And we'll come back when I add the yeast. Okay, so my yeast is finally starting to look like it's getting activated here. So I went ahead and transferred my pink slurry into my, I think they call this a carboy or whatever it is, I don't know. It's a glass jar that we use to ferment in. And so I'm going to add the yeast into it. This yeast took a little longer than I was used to. I was getting a little nervous. Like I said, I've never used this yeast before, and I was getting a little nervous that something wasn't right with it. So basically, I'm going to add that to the slurry, but I need to make sure that this is cool enough to not kill that yeast off. So that's why we don't go ahead and do the whole 5-gallon batch at a time. So I add regular water to this, spring water to this, to bring the temperature down from what it was at on the stove. So that'll just, you want this to be right around 100 degrees, somewhere between, say, like 95 and 110 degrees at first. You don't want to add the yeast to it if it's too hot. It'll just die off, and it also can't be too cold. So I'm gonna wait a little while, let this cool down a little bit more, It's still kind of warm. And I'll add the yeast to it and we'll go from there. Alright guys, this is it. I've added the yeast. I started doing a little bit of cleaning up. And my wife is probably still going to kill me because this is very sticky. So if I disappear, you can start the investigation there. But otherwise, this is going good. I added a little bit more yeast, which I probably shouldn't have because now it looks like it might overflow. Just this new yeast, I'm not sure how it's working. It just seems to be very slow compared to what I'm used to. Everything looks good. Everything smells good. So this should make some good stuff. This should be some good tasting stuff. This video here, I'm going to do my best to actually show the distilling process. So basically, this is the basic recipe for all my brandies. After this ferments in about 5 to 8 days, depending on the temperature I can keep it at. After this ferments, this is going to be basically a wine, and you would go into the racking and you'd rack it into bottles and things to complete the wine process. For me, I'm not making wine. I'm going to make the brandy out of it. So I'm going to actually strain this out, strain it out into my distiller, and distill it down into that, which is the first one on the left, the clear one. So that will be. I can usually get it into. I don't really go into the proofs. I know it's probably 160 proof, maybe a little bit more. And I'll end up with about 10 of these little jars. They're not quite quarts, they're maybe pints. I'll end up with about 10 of those that are drinkable after I water them down to a reasonable amount of alcohol that you can actually. It's still really strong enough the way you could mix it. I would say I get it down to maybe 100 proof, probably more than 100, probably more like 120, somewhere in that area. So it's still pretty strong when you mix it. Still strong enough that you probably don't want to be drinking it straight too much, other than sipping it here and there. But again, it's just a hobby for me, so it's just something fun. Most of the stuff I end up giving away. But I am going to do my best to do an actual distilling video. So look forward for that in the next week, 10 days or so. Maybe by the time I end up editing it, maybe 2 weeks from now. So I'll do this video tonight. So about 2 weeks from now, I'll hopefully have a distilling video. The last one that I did, for some reason, the audio wasn't working. So the whole video was just basically quiet, and it didn't. I don't know how to do the voiceovers or whatever. So that's that. So if you want to subscribe, like, do all that good stuff, that'd be great. And I will try my best to do that distilling video in the future. And now that we're getting into summer, this will probably be my last batch of liquor for a while until fall. Hopefully I'll get into some fishing or some metal detecting videos and some car stuff. I know I have a couple of projects around the house I need to do. And that's if my wife doesn't kill me for making the whole house sticky here. But that's one way to make sure I get the house clean, I guess, is to make a mess. I wouldn't be washing the floor today otherwise. So again, thanks for watching. And if you have any questions, let me know. I'm not great about responding right away, but I'll do my best. And we'll go from there. So I'm going to put an airlock on this, and it'll be done about, like I said, about 5 to 8 days should be done distilling. Done fermenting, and then I can start the distilling at that point. So hopefully I'll see you then. Thanks a lot.